My son is too good for a public school. He deserves to go to a private school. Send him to one, or else.
r/entitled parents. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen X demands I send our son to a private school. So I, 32 male, had my son Ben, who's 14 male, really young. My girlfriend Ivy and I were both 18 at the time, and we had just graduated high school. Ivy wanted to not have the baby, but I wanted to keep him. We agreed that she would carry him to term, but that she'd sign over all parental rights to me and have no responsibility to raise him. I raised him alone for 7 years, until my wife, Jane, 34 female, came into the picture. Jane legally adopted Ben 2 years ago and was the only real mother figure in his life until 1 year ago when Ivy showed up again. She reached out to me via Facebook and asked to meet Ben. I told Ben what was going on and I gave him the choice. He said yes. The three of us met up at a diner and the two of them had a very emotional conversation. They've been in sparse contact ever since. Now, I didn't know this at first, but Ivy has since converted to Catholicism. Now, I have no issues with her religion. However, she recently contacted me and asked me to send Ben to a local Catholic private school for high school. He'll be a freshman next year. She explained that she wants Ben to know her faith and that the school has a good reputation. She even offered to pay 2/3 of the tuition, but I said no. Why did I say no? Neither Ben nor I are religious at all. I asked Ben if he wants to go to the Catholic school or the local public high school, and he said he'd rather go to the public school to stay with his friends. Tuition is quite expensive, and even 1/3 would be a financial burden. I've heard horror stories about things that happen at those schools, and I don't want to risk Ben getting hurt. Their curriculum isn't publicly available, and I don't know how they would teach science, other things, and history. I don't want him learning a bunch of stuff that I don't believe in. Even with all of these reasons, she's still Ben's mother, and going against her wishes could risk their relationship. Would I be the jerk if I sent him to the public high school? Not the jerk. She signed over her parental rights at birth. You did more than enough to even consider it and give Ben the option. Also, the curriculum not being available to parents is a huge red flag. Also, Ben, at age 14, is old enough to know that his opinion matters. Even if OP were in favor of the idea, it would still not be okay given Ben is against it. It would also not be okay if she, for instance, asked Ben to attend church against Ben's wishes. Not the jerk. She gave up her parental rights. She can raise her kids as she sees fit, but Ben is not functionally her kid to raise anymore and hasn't been for a long time. Am I the jerk for not inviting all of the students to a barbecue? I, 30 female, am a teacher. I have a class with 24 students. I teach first grade. I told my students that we could have a barbecue at a park with hot dogs and hamburgers and snacks for whoever filled their good noodle sticker charts. This has been approved by the principal and I teach at a private school. We have daily sticker charts to track their behavior. They had to have perfect behavior all of April in order to participate. I have one student who has some behavioral issues. They did not earn all of their good noodle stickers this month. Since this student, we'll call Bobby, didn't earn the barbecue, I had barbecue. Since this student, we'll call Bobby, didn't earn the barbecue, I had let his mother know just in case he mentioned it. Bobby would join another class for the day and do work inside while his classmates were at the barbecue. She's been sending emails complaining to myself and the principal all week about how her kid should also have been able to participate and it's unfair. She thinks we should make an exception since he has behavioral issues and feels we could be targeting him. I think I'm being fair because he did not earn all of his good noodle stickers. So, am I the jerk? Update. I had a meeting today after school with the parents and principal. The principal agrees it would not be fair to the other students to allow Bobby to participate. She expressed she understands the frustration, but she needs to make it fair for all of the students, and not just Bobby. The father said he understood and thought it was a fair assessment if all of the other students were able to complete the goal. The mother argued Bobby's IEP. The principal then reminded her we follow his IEP as a courtesy, but as a private school, we legally do not have to follow it, and she has a choice to come to this school, but if she'd like to unenroll Bobby, then there was a waiting list of students they could contact to take his place. Bobby will still be enrolled in this school and in my class if anyone is wondering. He will not be attending the barbecue. Update 2. Bobby's mother came to the school yesterday to drop off Bobby's lunch he forgot at home. She arrived during the kids' snack recess. All of the kids were playing freeze tag, a game where once you're tagged, you have to freeze until someone unfreezes you. I was inside prepping art while the teacher's aide was with them. Bobby's mother came inside, absolutely livid, saying we were forcing her kid to stand in one place and not let him move. We explained the game, and she said then the students are cruel for not unfreezing him, but unfreezing everyone else. She was making such a big scene and being so loud that the principal overheard. Their office is down the hall. His mother was removed from the school grounds, and we had a meeting with his father in the afternoon. The principal let him know Bobby would need to be unenrolled due to his mother's behavior. He did try to get him to stay until at least the end of the year, but ultimately understood. He was also told if Bobby's mother is on the school grounds again, the police department will be called immediately. You're the jerk. As a former educator myself, I hate these kinds of public exclusionary rewards, especially for the very young kids. These are first graders. From what you've posted, it sounds like this was the only student excluded. There's literally no way that is going to encourage better behavior from this kid in the future. Kids, especially the younger ones, often act out in reaction to emotional stimuli they don't have the appropriate tools to process yet. 99% of the time, a kid of first grade age who is acting out has trouble somewhere, stress or problems at home, getting bullied, who knows. For the same reason it's unfair to punish younger kids for tardiness or attendance issues, it's unfair to expect a kid this young to behave all the time when you have no idea what might be happening in their lives that isn't in their control. Publicly excluding one kid is going to make behavioral issues worse. You're turning them into a pariah to their peers. Kids can be mean and honestly don't need much to single someone out as other. I know you want to use some kind of reward system for the kids who are behaving the way you want, but you're talking about 6-year-olds. Something as big as a barbecue at the park should have been an all-or-nothing class goal. Singling out the one kid who's having trouble, which again, you as the teacher will almost never know the true source of, is bullying. If these were high schoolers, that would be one thing. Teenagers are more mature and can be expected to have more control over their behavior. But we're talking about kids who are only 6 years old. You need to rethink your reward system, keeping in mind age-appropriate expectations for these kids. Edit. Some of your comments specify that the kid has an IEP. 100% you're the jerk. A kid that young who already has an IEP is never going to be able to meet that level of behavioral expectation, regardless of whatever accommodations the IEP calls for. Perfection for a month? You set this kid up to fail. Hopefully not on purpose, but that's still the outcome. Learn from this in the future. Am I the jerk for calling my mom a heartless jerk? I have a 4-year-old son, and I had him when I was 16. It's a complicated situation. My parents said that the only thing they'd provide me with was my room, and I had to care for the baby myself. It was hard, but it worked out in the end. My parents treat my son a lot nicer now too. My brother just turned 14, and he's the best. In fact, my son looks up to him, and my brother adores him. My son made this drawing of him and my brother and gave it to my brother for his birthday. My brother loved it so much that he kind of brushed off the presents me and my parents gave him. It upset my parents, but they kept their mouths shut. My son draws so many pictures of him and his uncle now, and he gives every single one to my brother, and my brother puts every single one on his wall. My brother was at a sleepover, and I had taken my son out for a fun day. When we got back, my son ran to my brother's room to show him something. The door was wide open, and the first thing he noticed was that all of his drawings were gone. He just began to cry, and it took forever to calm him down. He eventually went to sleep. My brother came back the next day, and when he went to hug my son, he started to cry. My brother was confused, so I told him that he saw the empty wall. My brother was still confused, so he went to his room and came back really upset. He said that he didn't do that, and he's actually going to cry as well because he liked those drawings. My mom came down, and he immediately confronted her, and she just said that she didn't realize how much he liked those drawings, and she took them down while she was cleaning his room. I was mostly shocked. She was there the night before when my son saw the wall and started crying, and she was comforting my son and everything. I felt betrayed. I called her out for how she acted last night, and she told me to relax, that I'm not allowed to speak to her like that. I honestly lost it, and I called her a heartless jerk. My own mother. I felt bad the second I said it, but it felt good too. My mom looked so shocked and just turned back and went to her room. My dad confronted me later and yelled at me for what I said. He said that regardless of what she did, she's my mom, and when he wanted to kick me out, mom's the one who convinced him to let me and my baby stay. Am I the jerk? I feel guilty now. Edit. She didn't take them down temporarily. She took them down and threw them out. And it wasn't just random drawings stuck to a wall. It was organized and laid out with a lot of care. Not the jerk. Wow, your mom has some serious jealousy issues going on there. I really hope she doesn't cause any damage to the relationship between your brother and your son. Not the jerk. Sounds like your mom's playing mind games. It's obvious that they mean a lot to both your son and your brother. A 14-year-old wouldn't put up stuff all over their walls that they didn't want up. Sounds like she was stirring the pot purposefully to try to get a reaction from you so that she can come in and save the day by letting you stay. So she both caused the issue and she's the good guy in the situation. Not the jerk. You can apologize for calling her names for your own conscience and if this was truly out of character thing for her to do, but don't back down on pointing out how what she did was wrong and hurt both her son and grandson immensely. There was no good reason for her to throw those drawings out, and she can't justify it either. Also, your mom doesn't get an award for being a decent parent when your dad wanted to throw you out. That was quite literally her job. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit because of $10? So I, 16 male, live next door to a single mom, Anne, and her 2 kids, Max, who's 9, and Mia, who's 7. Every month or so, when she needs a break from them, I babysit for a few hours, $8.50 an hour. She's usually gone for 4 hours at a time and is back around 15 minutes later than her specified return time. She leaves me with a list of emergency contacts in case something happens and she can't get home fast enough. We agreed that if I had to use an emergency number, I get $10 extra as crisis pay. The last time I was watching the kids, around a month ago, Anne stayed out an hour and a half past her specified return time and wasn't answering my texts or calls. I got worried, so I called one of the emergency contacts, Anne's sister, Jen, who came over to stay in the house while she tried to get a hold of Anne. The kids were asleep by this point, but she didn't want to leave them in an empty house, and I went home. Well, as it turns out, Anne had driven into the countryside, with no reception, to stargaze and got lost. Jen texted me this around midnight once Anne finally texted her back. The next morning, my mom woke me up saying that Anne was at the door for me. Here's how the conversation went. Me, a little groggy. Hey, what's up? Are you okay? Anne,
I'm all right. I just stopped by to pay you.
She handed me an envelope.
There you go, kiddo. $47.
Me, wait, what about the crisis pay? I had to call your sister. It should be $57.
What crisis? I wasn't in an accident or anything. I just got lost.
Me, you said it was if I had to use an emergency contact. You never said anything about other requirements.
Look, just take it and be happy. A kid like you doesn't need that much money for 5.5 hours of messing around on your phone.
Me, fine, have a nice day. I shut the door and write it off as a loss. Fast forward to yesterday. Anne texts me that she wants to go out on a girls' night and wants to know if I'm free to babysit. I say that I am, but that she'll need to pay me the $10 from last time before I agree to it. She says that she won't do that and restates her argument that it wasn't a real crisis, so I shouldn't get crisis pay. I tell her that I won't be babysitting for her until I get that $10. She says that she really needs this break and calls me entitled for refusing. I step back into bewilderment. A few minutes go by without any more texts from her, so I go to my mom to clue her in. I show her the conversation, and to my surprise, my mom agrees with Anne. She affirms that I'm being entitled, that I don't know how hard it is to be a single mom, and that I should suck it up and just babysit. I say that I need time to think, and I head up to my room. This morning, Anne texted me to ask if I would babysit or not. I restated my ultimatum, and she also held firm in her refusal. She said she'll find another sitter. I said that's fine. So far, I've stood my ground, but now I'm questioning if my mom might be right. Am I the jerk? Nope. Not the jerk. You provided a service with agreed-upon clauses, and you used said clause, and she's trying to weasel out of paying you back because she doesn't consider your time valuable. I personally wouldn't babysit for her again because she will try to manipulate you again. Edit. Also, just because you're just a kid and you don't need that much money, you should let her know that regardless of your age, you're still a person who deserves to have their time and effort respected. Not the jerk. You have the right to refuse to offer your paid services to anyone. Additionally, that counts as a definite crisis. The kid's mom was nowhere to be found. Also, it's not your responsibility to be Captain Save a Single Mom. Am I the jerk for not inviting my dad's wife to the wedding? I, 24 female, got engaged last May to my fiance, 24 male. I'm very excited about it, but when it came down to planning, I knew that my parents would be a tough situation. My parents separated when I was 16 and didn't get officially divorced until 2020. My dad remarried in 2021. I'll refer to his wife as Sharon. During the initial separation, my sisters and I stayed with our mom. She was going through such a hard time. My dad, in the beginning, attempted to make an effort with my sisters and me, but it was very obvious that he was eager to start his new family. He eventually became a distant father, only really talking to us around holidays, taking Sharon and her kids on trips and bonding with them. I missed my dad, but he seemed to have already moved on from us, and he was never a good person to communicate with. I still attempted to have some sort of relationship, even if it was at arm's length. I invited him to my high school and college graduation, which he attended both without Sharon. When Sharon and my dad got engaged, none of us were happy about it, but it was what he wanted. We went to the wedding. All three of us were very emotional about it, which family on my dad's side could tell, and they tried to comfort us. I've never been mean to Sharon. I've always just sort of tolerated her. We never formed any kind of bond, and I only ever saw her if I was visiting my dad, which already was once in a while. The same applies for my sisters. So now, being engaged, I've taken everything in. I decided I wanted my dad at my wedding, but just as my dad. He wouldn't get a +1 or anything of the sort. To make things fair, I set the same rules for my mom. This past weekend, I went to talk to him and Sharon. My fiance was with me when I told them. I said that I meant no disrespect, but I had to also think of my mom and that this would be easier. I also made it a point to tell him that my mom isn't allowed to bring anyone either. If Sharon wanted to celebrate our wedding, we could always also do dinner another time. I thought letting them know in advance, since the wedding isn't until fall of 2024, he would hopefully take it well and still want to show up. I was emotional, and afterward he did hug me and told me that he would let me know their decision. I left feeling better, but things changed. On our way home, he called me. He asked if this was my decision, which I said yes to. Then he told me that we could do dinner another time, and essentially his answer was no. I was upset, so we just said our goodbyes, and that was that. Edit. Some asked why I don't want Sharon there, and I commented my explanation. Here it is. She was part of the reason my father left. In no way do I consider my mother the better parent in everything, but she wanted to work and try. Sharon was my father's coworker. When he left, he immediately moved in with her, and if I'm honest, my sisters and I have never seen her as a stepmother, but more so as our dad's girlfriend or wife. There's just no relationship there. I will admit, I never fully tried, but I was young when I was navigating everything, and I had no idea how to handle it. There was also no effort on her end. That has led to where I am today in my relationship with her and my father. No jerks here. You set boundaries, he respected them, but ultimately decided to not attend. You have every right to allow or disallow anyone you want to your wedding, but he has the right to decline your invite. It sounds like you both handled it well and that he respects your decision. Honestly, when you implied your dad was eager to start his new family and that he became distant to you and was doing more with his new stepkids, I wondered why you'd even invite him to your wedding at all. What a tool. Not the jerk. I think ultimately no jerks here. In your dad's defense, your mom and him have been separated for 8 years now. Both should be able to be cordial in a public setting, and let's be real, Sharon isn't going anywhere. She'll be around for holidays, birthdays, celebrations, and other things. It's not completely realistic to establish a baseline where your dad's partner is not permitted at big family moments. However, it does sound like your relationship with your dad has been strained since the separation, and that you two have never found your way fully back together. Nor does it sound like you and Sharon found some shared ground, so it makes sense why you may not want her there. Sit and look pretty instead of doing actual work? Okay. For the sake of clarity, I'm going to say I work in an industry which is similar to warehousing. Same logic in the grand scheme of things. In my branch, and several surrounding branches, there are only 2 staff members to keep the place running, so we all have casual uniforms. Just a polo shirt and appropriate pants and footwear. I mainly do administrative work, and I have a team member who works in the back end of things, but I'm capable and willing to jump outside when required of me. Examples of me needing to work in the back would be if we had a huge rush, or if I need to send my teammate to help at another branch or out on the road to collect stock, and I have to fill in for him while he's gone. It's a pretty good setup because working outside really breaks up the monotony of being stuck at a desk all day, and it's easy enough to do both parts of the job when I need to. Some genius in head office decided he wanted to change the uniform for any and all admin staff to something a little more corporate and dressy. I can only describe this uniform as a three-piece suit made with the heaviest fabrics known to man. Suddenly, I've gone from wearing a polo shirt, which is comfortable and easy to move around in, to wearing a white long-sleeve business shirt with a vest, jacket, and handkerchief, complete with skirt, stockings, and slight heels. I straight up look like a flight attendant working in an industrial warehouse and can barely lift my arms high enough to hold my steering wheel on the drive to work. It was a poorly designed uniform, and I was so incredibly uncomfortable wearing it. I was very quick to voice my anger. I first mentioned how it's unfair, borderline cruel, to expect staff to wear such a thick and layered uniform when we live in Australia, particularly in a place known for our consistent high temperatures and harsh sun. I then asked how I would be expected to leave the desk to operate machinery and do heavy lifting in a suit, skirt, and heels. I was met with the promise that anyone working in admin and wearing a corporate uniform would not have to leave their desk to do any back-end work at all. I raised another concern, stating that we did not have enough staff for them to make this particular promise and still maintain our quality of work and hit our deadlines, and was met with a strong guarantee that I would not have to do any physical work in my day-to-day operations. I was all but ordered to sit at the desk to look appealing for clients and never move from there. Okay then, no problem. From that point onwards, I followed their instructions. I never left my desk. There would suddenly be long wait times for orders and fulfillments because my team member was on the road on a job, and there was no one on site to continue his work until he got back. If my team member called in sick, I would spend the day pushing back deadlines with clients, which affected our targets and our reputation. Funny enough, my teammate only started getting sick because I had to have the office air conditioning on freezing temperatures so I wouldn't get heat stroke at my desk. I was honest with clients who had complaints and explained that I would usually step in to help make sure their needs were met, but was specifically instructed not to anymore, and then redirected their complaints through to customer service and head office. After a few months of this, I was invited to a meeting with 3 of my direct managers and an HR representative. They were clearly upset about the drop in productivity and amount of complaints we were receiving. I let them all say their piece before reminding them I raised these concerns to them months ago and was merely following instructions given to me, which were abundantly clear that I was to take care of admin work at my desk and do nothing else. I let them know my hands were tied, so all I could do was look pretty and placate clients when we inevitably couldn't meet their needs as promised. I suggested hiring more warehousing staff to fill in the gaps left by the admin staff, who were now chained to their desk by their uniform and unable to ease the pressure of the workload like we used to. I could see that comment definitely hit them right where I wanted it to, and they couldn't argue with me for following their instructions. So I was told they would get back to me on a solution moving forward. Well, here I am at work 2 weeks later, typing this post while wearing my old polo shirt uniform. I was fully prepared to find another job if their solution wasn't reasonable, and maybe I still will look to leave this place, but I'll take the win for now. Am I the jerk for not telling her there was crawfish in the pasta? Context: I, 29 female, live in South Louisiana. All my family is from the area, Mississippi, and Texas. Our family had a cookout on Sunday for my mom's 60th birthday. It was at me and my husband's house. We did a majority of the cooking. I made crawfish, Cajun fettuccine, and husband made potato salad. We also had deviled eggs, cheese and fruit plate, boudin, and green beans brought by others. It was about 22 people over. My brother, 26 male, and his girlfriend, Brittany, who's 24, were there. Brittany is a transplant from Ohio. She's been here for a little under 2 years. She's been with my brother almost just as long. Brittany is vocal about hating shellfish, especially crawfish and shrimp. She has said that they are bugs and water roaches and they gross her out. My family, especially my dad and uncles, tease her about not liking shellfish, but it's not malicious. At the cookout, I didn't see Brittany or my brother until everyone settled. I saw Brittany was at a table with an empty bowl. She told me she loved the fettuccine and ate 2 servings. I told her that there was crawfish, head fat, and some other backstraps in it, so I was surprised she enjoyed it. My uncle was at the table talking to my brother and said some comment about how they'll make her a real Southern girl yet. Brittany immediately looked embarrassed and got very quiet. I left her alone after that as it seemed like she didn't want to talk. My brother took me aside later and said Brittany was upset and thought I purposefully tricked her into eating crawfish. I told him that wasn't true, but he said I should have made it more obvious about the fettuccine. I honestly didn't think to tell her. I was very busy, so it wasn't at the front of my mind. I wanted to talk to her, but my brother said not to, as she was already in their car and she and my brother left the cookout early despite me trying to get them to stay. I talked to my cousin about this. She thinks Brittany feels very othered and singled out. I get it, but that's not the case here, and I feel like she was being dramatic, especially since my brother left early on our mom's birthday. Am I the jerk? No jerks here. I understand why you didn't tell her, but given how much of a hard time she'd been given about the issue, I absolutely understand why she was upset. She probably is now preparing herself to be pressured into eating shellfish for the rest of the time she knows your family. People will be total jerks about it because they already have been. Teasing people for their preferences is so rude, and now that she's eaten it once, you know they will never let up. You say the teasing isn't malicious, but does it make her uncomfortable? If yes, then they need to stop. We aren't required to like the food people think we need to like, and liking it in one dish doesn't mean we're going to ever want to eat it again. You know they'll never let her forget this. We all know these kinds of people, and they're awful. I hurt for her. I'd be surprised if she ever comes to a family dinner again because she just doesn't want to deal with the teasing. Oh no, being teased about not liking crawfish. The horror, the horror. Oh, you know how it is these days, Karen. Some people's biggest problem in life is figuring out what they're gonna watch on Netflix today. New neighbors keep using our pool without permission. Should I call the cops on them? I'm 32, female. My wife and I finally bought our own home instead of renting. It took a lot of work, but we did it. And it's a home we both love and plan to spend the rest of our lives in. It even has a pool, which is just amazing and something I'd always wanted but never thought I'd have. The issue is our next door neighbors. I keep finding their kids using our pool, having hopped our fence, and I keep getting them to leave. I've spoken to their parents about this issue, and they've told me that the elderly couple we bought the house from would let them use the pool in exchange for cleaning it, so they're just used to being able to use it. I told them that was fine when it was the last neighbor, but it's something my wife and I are not comfortable with as we don't know them well enough. Plus, if they were to get hurt, we'd feel awful about it. They insist that nobody would get hurt and asked if it would be okay if they used it whenever we weren't using it, as they're just kids, and spoke about how it's getting hotter now. I was getting annoyed at this point and told them they should get their own pool then, and I'd already told them we weren't comfortable with this. Ever since then, I've had to chase them away a couple more times, and their parents are constantly sending me dirty looks whenever they see me. I've since posted a sign stating it's a private pool and can only be used with permission. Am I really being unfair here? Yes, it sucks that they had an arrangement with the last owners, but it's our pool now. Not the jerk. You know those parents would sue you into the next century if someone got hurt in your pool. You need to have your pool totally fenced off with a locking gate. I would also report the kids to the police as trespassing, if only to put the parents on notice. OP should tell the neighbors that next time they will call the cops. And if they don't take the warning seriously, actually call the cops. OP has already put signs up and everything, and the law is on OP's side. You are wrong. The law is not on OP's side. A pool is an attractive nuisance, and regardless of signs, fence, etc., OP is liable. I had all this stuff, fence, alarm, etc., and lost a lawsuit when a known neighborhood nuisance hopped the fence, was drunk, and ended up passing. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that I can't compete with her stepmom, and that if she can't cope with it, she should live there full time? 15 years ago, I, 19 at the time, dated this guy, Mark, who was 25. I got pregnant after a few months with him. I wasn't ready for a kid, so I gave Mark full custody of our daughter, Natalie, who's now 14, and I'd visit a couple of times a year. Mark is from a good family and already had a great job when we first met. He quickly climbed up the ladder and was able to give Natalie a very privileged life. When Natalie was 2, he met Amy, and they got married when Natalie was 4. Natalie and Amy have always been very close, and Amy is very much involved in her life. She's room mom, head of the PTA. She was the soccer coach, the softball coach, head of the theater guild, and found a way to be part of everything Natalie was involved in. She also drives Natalie to school early in the mornings so they could stop for breakfast first, and she packs Natalie's lunch every day, and not something like peanut butter and jelly in a bag of chips. She makes Natalie steak or quiche or lettuce wraps with a side of salad with homemade dressing, fresh fruit, and homemade dessert. Natalie doesn't understand that the only reason Amy is able to do all of this is because she doesn't work and she doesn't have to do much around the house. They have a cleaning service come multiple times a week. I recently got an apartment close to Mark and Amy's house, and I have Natalie 1 week out of the month now. It was pretty hard for both of us at first. Natalie had a hard time understanding that we're not stopping for breakfast before school, and the best thing she's going to get from me for lunch is a turkey sandwich, cookie from the grocery store I work at, a bag of chips, and an apple. She was also not used to the fact that she has to clean up after herself. Natalie was here last week, and we were already not getting along because she had an event at school that week that she told Amy about and not me, because she refused to clean her room, and because I found out she's been throwing away the lunches I make for her and asking Amy to bring her lunch since she started staying with me. She had a sore throat on Wednesday, and I let her stay home from school, then started to get ready to leave for work. When I was about to leave, she made a comment that Amy always stays home with her when she doesn't feel well. I said it's a sore throat and she'll be fine, but she got an attitude and said that I should try to be a good mom like Amy. We ended up arguing, and I told her that I can't compete with Amy, and that if she can't handle that, she needs to go back to her dad's house. So she called Amy to pick her up, and I haven't heard from her since. I was supposed to take her out for dinner this Saturday, but now she doesn't want to go, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. You're the jerk. Your daughter may have your DNA, but you aren't her mother. She's been through a dramatic change when you stepped back into her life. Because of that, your expectations for this relationship aren't realistic. She's 14, and you literally abandoned her at birth. You have a golden opportunity to get to know the young woman she's becoming, but you've turned this situation into a competition between you and her mother. You cannot blame her at all for not wanting to spend time with you. I don't understand how OP turned it into a competition. Given the example provided in the post, what was she supposed to do? Miss work to stay home with Amy and lose money and day off for a non-emergency? Just because her stepmother doesn't work and could actually stay with Amy in such a situation because she A, is not employed, B, doesn't rely on the money from work. There was a no-win for OP there. The kid literally demands stuff OP can't provide, like breakfast at cafes, because she cannot afford it on a single income, presumably. Your comment contains no actual advice of what she was supposed to do, apart from generic do better. Edit. Just to clarify, there are different issues here. OP is not the jerk for the situation described in the post, and that's what I refer to in this comment. However, she appears to be the jerk for forcefully inserting herself into the life of this teenager by fighting Natalie's parents in court for custody, instead of simply agreeing to visitation rights. All this presumably in response to Amy wanting to adopt. Not the jerk. I think you need a full stop and try to imagine how you'd feel if you were your daughter. She's been given a very nice life by her father and stepmom. You were rarely in the picture, and that's when it suited you. Now you decided to become a mom, and you think this human whom you birthed should be so happy to have you in her life. I wouldn't. I'd be upset if I had to leave the comfort of my home to go stay with a stranger for a week every month, simply because she decides to move close enough that it's convenient for her. You've uprooted her. You're not helping her to adapt. You expect her to be happy you're around, and you're mad because she isn't. You pull her away from her comfort for an entire week and take her to a place that's clearly less than she's accustomed to, and you're mad because she's not happy? She's 14. 14-year-olds aren't happy anyway, and you're giving her way more reasons to be unhappy.
I demand you subscribe to our channel right now and tick the bell for all notifications. And watch this video next, the one that just popped up. You're going to love that one. We'll see you there.